Hello friends, welcome to my official channel Crack IELTS with Simmer. Some of the practical tips to achieve a band 7 and over in writing. There are a number of factors that will actually contribute to your final score on IELTS exam. So anyone who might have attended my class, they know I never miss any of my writing class without making reference to these 4 components. So as I mentioned, any of the training institute or any of the teachers who coach you for your IELTS writing module, they generally award you score out of 3 in your task 1 and score out of 6 in your writing task 2. So in a way that's inappropriate, and I'll show you how that's inappropriate and what should be the ideal way of assessment. So what we know is that Cambridge English, British Council and IDP Australia has an automated system in which all these scores are entered as awarded by the examiners. So for example, anything or curious to know how writing is assessed, there is no 0.5 here that the examiner could award. So for example, the examiner cannot award, for example, 6.5 out of 9, or the examiner cannot award 7.5 or 8.5 out of 9. Let's understand what these 4 marking criteria are. Now there are some of the keywords that IELTS uses to trick people. So for example, when you get words like and, only, all, some, many, so make sure you have a clear topic sentence of each paragraph that you're writing, and that will make your reader interested in your piece of writing. I know many IELTS examiners who would say, I would rate an essay a higher band score when it took lesser time for me to understand and read what the writer is trying to say. I hope that makes sense. About using them naturally. Of course, I don't want to repeat the words that I have already written in my, it's a plural, and with the plural I am using vocabulary. Let's make sure you don't write any sentence unless you are 100% sure. I'm sharing my personal experience, how I have achieved band 9 in all the 4 modules. One final last tip that I wanted to give you guys, keep writing, which is the key to get high band score. Hello friends, welcome to my official channel Crack IELTS with Simmer.
This is my first video on the YouTube channel,
in which I will be sharing with you guys some of the practical tips to achieve a band 7 and over in writing. So let's get started. Alright, so before we get started, I'd like to share with you guys my personal experience in IELTS writing exam. It's not easy to score a band 7 and over in IELTS writing module. I have taught hundreds and thousands of IELTS students who were aiming to achieve a band 7 and over in IELTS writing module. And I think most of them have to appear in IELTS more than 1 times to get their desired band score. It's not that it's hit and trial method that most of the students think that they will just keep on repeating their IELTS exam until they get their desired band score. So IELTS writing is very subjective. So when I say subjective, what I mean is there are a number of factors that will actually contribute to your final score on IELTS exam. So we will talk about all those things in this video. But firstly, I would like to tell you what's the target audience for this video. So who is this video for? So number 1, anyone who appear in the IELTS exam for the very first time and they want to crack IELTS with a good band score, specifically on writing module. And obviously anyone who is repeating to appear in the IELTS exam, unfortunately they might have scored a band 6, a 6.5 in their previous exam, but they're aiming to score a band 7 or higher on IELTS. And finally, anyone who is willing to improve their academic writing skills. So I would definitely say my favorite students, so 778 candidates who are aiming to apply for the permanent residency in Canada, or maybe 7 each candidates who are looking at applying for permanent residency in Australia or New Zealand. This video is for them. And next I'm going to talk about what I will cover in this video. So I will divide this video basically into 3 parts. So in the first part of this video, we will be talking about how your writing paper or your writing module is assessed. So obviously listening and reading, you know that out of 40 questions, if you, for example, correct 23 questions, 23 answers, you're gonna get a band 6. Similarly, if you correct 30 questions in academic exam in reading module, you'll get a band 7. And in general training module, you'll get a band 6. I'll make separate videos for reading and listening modules. And in this specific video, as I said, we are going to talk about simply the writing module. So the second part of this video, we're going to cover about understanding the marking criteria on writing. So obviously, first part, we will talk about what are the different set of marking criteria on which your writing paper is assessed. In the second part of the video, we're going to talk about what does that mean and how this criteria specifically works when we practically talk about gaining what are something called as band descriptors. And in the third part of the video, we are going to talk about some of the common mistakes that most students make. I would say I have got the personal experience of looking at my students' exams and my own exam, like what are some of the common mistakes that we all make. And finally, in the fourth part of the video, I will share with you some practical tips on how to improve on your writing module. So it's not a simple process, but stay tuned with me. We will definitely look at improving some of your writing skills, if not all, by the end of this video. So let's get started. All right. So as I said, the first thing, how writing is assessed. So as I mentioned previously, your writing module basically is subjective. So it is assessed on a specific band descriptors scale that is launched by Cambridge English British Council and IDP Australia, who are the official owners of IELTS exam. I'll put the link in the description bar so you can download and consider that as the Bible of your IELTS assessment. So it's really important to understand thoroughly on that specific marking scales, that what contributes to band 7, what contributes to band 6. Make sure you understand every single thing in that official band descriptors. So anyone who might have attended my class, they know I never miss any of my writing class without making reference to these 4 components. So as I mentioned, that these are your 4 key components on improving your IELTS writing module score. So what are these 4 components? So we've got task response and task achievement, cohesion and coherence, lexical resource, grammatical range and accuracy. As I said, the first part will be how writing is assessed. So each of these components contributes to 25% of your writing score. Now please pay attention here. You may have noticed that any of the training institute or any of the teachers who coach you for your IELTS writing module, they generally award you score out of 3 in your task 1 and score out of 6 in your writing task 2. So in a way that's inappropriate, and I'll show you how that's inappropriate and what should be the ideal way of assessment. So how writing is assessed, the first thing you need to understand, task 1 contributes to 1/3 of your total writing score and task 2 contributes to 2/3 of your total writing score. Now we know that IELTS writing overall is band 9. So if it's overall band 9, in a way task 1 is band 3, task 2 is band 6. But this is not how the examiners would score you in your IELTS writing when you're appearing in actual exam. So examiner would award you out of band 9 in each of these 4 writing marking criteria. So band 9 from task response or task achievement, each in report and essay. For example, this is your script for task 1 and this is someone's script in task 2. Examiners are going to award out of band 9. So for example, task 1, a candidate gets 7 out of 9. Lexical resource 6 out of 9. Grammatical range 7 out of 9. 6 out of 9. And task response, maybe the candidate gets, for example, 6 out of 9, 7 out of 9, 8 out of 9, 8 out of 9. What happens after that? No one knows. Even I would say an examiner won't be able to tell you what happens next. So what we know is that Cambridge English, British Council and IDP Australia has an automated system in which all these scores are entered as awarded by the examiners. So for example, an examiner has awarded these scores in task 1 and these scores in task 2. So they will go into an automated system and the computer is gonna show its magic. And we don't know what that magic is, so that magic remains secret for everyone. But what we know is that it somehow is gonna calculate and make task 1 as 1/3 of the total and make task 2 as 2/3 of the total. Now here's an important tip for you guys, anyone who is maybe training IELTS candidates or anyone who is wanting or curious to know how writing is assessed. There is no 0.5 here that the examiner could award. So for example, the examiner cannot award, for example, 6.5 out of 9, or the examiner cannot award 7.5 or 8.5 out of 9. So there is no 0.5 when we are talking about the original scores that the examiners would award you in each of the marking criteria. So in each of the marking criteria, examiner will award you a whole number, which is 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 or 9. So you get a whole number, not a decimal like a 0.5. Now the question is how you end up getting a 6.5, a 7.5 or so. So as I said, computer is gonna show its magic. So when these scores are entered into a system, so let's say for example the computer has calculated this as a 6.5, I don't know, I'm just guessing, and the computer has calculated this one as, looks like a 7, this goes here, 7, 7, 7, 7. So computer has calculated this one as 7. So I would say this is slightly over 7 using my mathematical skills, and this one is 6.5. Now when the computer is gonna show its magic, it's gonna be overall score of maybe a 6.5 or a 7. So I don't know, so we don't know. So but since I can see this is slightly over 7 and this is 6.5, so when this 2/3 goes there over 7, I would say that it is more closer to band 7. So if you're aiming to achieve a band 7, I would say the best way is to practice achieving a band 7 in both the tasks. So it is really important for you to practice both the tasks, task 1 and task 2. Of course, task 2 is more important because it contributes to higher band score, but it doesn't mean that task 1 is less important. So this is about part 1 of this video, that how writing is assessed. Hope that's helpful. If you have any questions around IELTS assessment, please feel free to put a comment in the comment section. I'll be more than happy to reply you on any of the comments that you may have. So now that you know that how writing module is assessed, the next part of the video, I'm going to talk to you guys about understanding these marking criteria. So we know that writing is assessed on 4 basic marking criteria: task response, lexical resource, cohesion and coherence, grammatical range and accuracy. Now let's look at what that 4 criteria mean. It's very important for you guys to understand each of these criteria before you can even think of getting a band 7. I know many even English native language speakers fail to achieve a band 7 on IELTS writing because they didn't know what these 4 marking criteria are. So you can, as I said, you can simply get a band 9 in listening, reading, and even on the speaking module, but getting a band 7 in writing is difficult. So let's understand what these 4 marking criteria are. The first one that I'm going to talk about here is task response. So as the name itself suggests, response to the task. So when you're writing an essay or when you're writing a report, you always are expected to respond to the task appropriately. Now, what are some of the key components here when we talk about task response? So the first thing is answer the task completely. Now there are some of the keywords that IELTS uses to trick people. So for example, when you get words like and, only, all, some, many, these are some of the keywords that IELTS wants you to focus when you're appearing or answering the task in IELTS writing module. So make sure that you pay attention to those keywords and you answer the task completely. So for example, if a question say, city life offers several benefits to both government and city people. Do you agree or disagree? So it's say to city people and to government. So you've got 2 keywords here. So you're gonna talk about both these key subject areas. So of course, if you're not focusing on one and focusing on other, you'll end up getting a band 5 or even less than that on your task response. So make sure you answer the task completely when we're talking about task response. The second thing that's really important in task response is developing the ideas. So I will say develop and extend ideas. So you may write something in your response that is not sufficiently supported or that is not sufficiently explained, described, or elaborated in the exam, and you might end up getting a band 6 or less on your task response part. So make sure that you extend and develop all the ideas that you're writing on your IELTS exam. The third thing that's important in task response is writing an overview or conclusion. So when you're writing, for example, a report in academic writing task 1, you must have an overview. Now an overview is simply what you could see as an overall trend when you look at the graph or when you look at the picture. That's a graphical representation of task 1. And writing a clear conclusion. So when I say clear conclusion, that should basically be the overall of what your gist is of your writing piece. So for example, you shouldn't be introducing anything new when you're writing the conclusion. So you're gonna end up with a band 6 or even less than that in your writing module. So make sure your conclusion is your gist of whatever you have written in your IELTS exam on the writing task 2 part, and the overall is the gist of whatever graphical representation you can see in the picture. So let me differentiating, I'm talking about both task 1 and task 2 here. So having an overview in report and a conclusion in task 2. Obviously, if you're talking about a general training students, we will look at the purpose of the letter. So we need to make sure your purpose of the letter is very clear, that you are talking about what, so why you're writing that specific letter. That's task response. There are a few more things, but I'm not going to talk about every single thing. I will just be very brief and talk about some of the very key important parts in each of these areas. Let's talk about cohesion and coherence. So you can see here there are two words, cohesion and coherence. So cohesion obviously means a glue that connects the sentences. So I'm talking here about the connectors, and coherence is the overall logical progression in your essay. I know these words might sound very heavy to you guys, but let's make it simple. So the connecting words that you use in your essay refers to cohesion in your essay, and how easy your essay is to read for the examiner in overall makes your coherence. I hope that makes sense. If you have further questions about cohesion and coherence, please put in the comment section and I'll be more than happy to answer those questions. But let's look at what constitutes to cohesion and coherence when you're writing your essay. So the first thing I'll say, topic sentence. Now topic sentence really is both task response and cohesion and coherence, but when I teach my students, I generally put that as a part of cohesion and coherence. So for example, I am reading a paragraph and I am telling my reader what I am going to write. My reader will already be interested in what I am going to write and I'm expecting what's going to unfold. So make sure when you're writing anything in your body paragraphs, you have a clear topic sentence, and this topic sentence has to be very simple and should be the gist of whatever you're going to write in your body paragraph. For example, let's say there's an essay about benefits and drawbacks of learning foreign language in schools for children, for maybe school-going children. And I can say in the first body paragraph, learning a foreign language for school-going children can offer several benefits. So as simple as that. So my reader would know what they are going to read, what they can expect in this body paragraph. So what they're expecting are the benefits of learning a foreign language for school-going children. And the next paragraph, it could be, for example, on the other hand, learning a foreign language comes with several drawbacks. So I'm writing on the other hand, giving my examiner a clue that I'm writing the other side of what I have already talked about, and this time it's drawbacks and not the benefits. So I'm gonna use the simple and academic words like several, benefits, drawbacks. So make sure you have a clear topic sentence of each paragraph that you're writing, and that will make your reader interested in your piece of writing, and obviously that will be easy for your reader to understand what you're going to write in this specific body paragraph. All right, so let's talk about what else is in cohesion and coherence. So the next thing is linking words. And that's the beauty of writing. I want you to use the connecting words in such a way that attracts no attention of the reader. Now, obviously, that's what the band criteria at band 9 says, that uses cohesion in such an impressive way that attracts no attention of the reader. Now, here's my simple tip for you guys. Sometimes words like they, them, their are the best connecting devices rather than the connecting words like furthermore, moreover. I'll definitely make another video where we're gonna talk about some natural connecting devices, but in this video it's just linking words. So use the natural linking words in cohesion and coherence. The next thing is easy to read. I know many IELTS examiners who would say I would rate an essay a higher band score when it took lesser time for me to understand and read what the writer is trying to say. I hope that makes sense. So write an essay that's easy, write an essay that follows a logical progression, write an essay that takes less time for the reader to read and understand and conveying your ideas, what you're saying. So obviously by writing, you're communicating what you're trying to say to your reader. So if you're using very difficult words in a sense that are not used in proper connotation, and you're using very long sentences, that's gonna definitely impact your score on coherence, and you will end up getting a lower band score. So this is important. Writing is not about writing complex sentences, and writing is not about writing difficult words. It's about writing naturally and communicating to your reader that this is your natural piece of writing, and you're communicating the ideas that you wanted to communicate in your piece of writing. So that makes writing impressive. Hope that makes sense. And finally, in conclusion and coherence, the component that I'm going to talk about is logical progression. When I say logical progression, it means moving further. It's not that when I am writing, I'm just moving around one idea and not I'm moving next. So your essay should be, or your report should be, your letter should be moving forward. So it's going next, but it's still taking whatever you have written previously, taking all the stuff with it. I hope that makes sense. So what that means is, whatever you have written previously, you're taking that things with you forward, but you're also going forward, bringing new ideas, but taking all the stuff together with that. So that obviously binds your essay. So we're gonna take more examples about that in some other videos, but for you to understand logical progression, that your essay is flowing, your report is flowing, it's moving forward, and obviously the reader is understanding that it's going next. The next thing I'm going to talk about is lexical resource, vocabulary. Now, I know most of the people who have studied IELTS, they have heard about I have to use difficult words, I have to use impressive words to get the band 9 in IELTS writing. Well, I can tell you from my experience, vocabulary is not about using impressive words. Vocabulary is not about using difficult words. It's about using the words naturally and using the words in a wide range. So the first thing which is of importance in lexical resource is a wide range naturally. If I'm using collocations, so for example, I'm using a word to gain access. It's impressive. So if I'm using this thing in my writing to gain access, that will actually give examiner an indication this particular candidate has got a good range of vocabulary. For example, at one stage, let's say students, and the next stage I am saying, for example, learners, or maybe I'm using the word that actually indicates that I can use the language in naturally, and I can demonstrate that I know different words. I know it's hard to understand that at one stage I have said not to use difficult words, and now I'm saying use words, but it's about using them naturally. Of course, I don't want to repeat the words that I have already written in my essay all and over again, but I still don't want it to introduce a word that actually do not 100% justifies what I'm saying in my essay. I hope that makes sense. But of course, when we talk more about what vocabulary means, it will make a lot more sense for you. But at the moment, make sure that you're not using very difficult words that you're unsure about. You're using the words that you definitely know naturally are replaceable, and you use the collocations correctly, and of course the wide range. The next thing, spelling. That's really important. I can't tell you how important spellings are. If you are making a lot of spelling errors, even if you use, for example, very uncommon words in your essay, that's not gonna give you a band 7 in writing, because spelling errors obviously contributes to heavy deduction in your band score in specifically lexical resource. And the verb endings. Now, when I say verb endings, for example, I'm writing people uses and whatever goes next. Now the examiner knows that people, it's not singular, it's a plural, and with the plural I am using a verb that's ideally used with the singular. So it's actually a grammar error, but it's also the lexical resource error. So make sure your verb endings are accurate. So basically the subject verb agreement. I will also say when we are dealing with wide range of vocabulary, naturally we want the candidates to use topic related vocabulary. Let's say an essay about maybe education. So you're expected to use the words like learning material, learners, educational activities, study material, learning resources, educational institutions, educational media, audio-visual aids and stuff like that. So you're expected to use all those topic related vocabulary rather than any other difficult items of vocabulary that you could think of. So remember to use the topic related vocabulary when you're talking about lexical resource. So this is your lexical resource. And finally, grammatical range and accuracy. So definitely we the people from Asian countries generally don't have a very good command over grammar, such as using singular and plurals, using articles, subject verb agreement and things like that. But I'll tell you some of the most simple things. First thing that we will be talking about grammatical range and accuracy is using error-free sentences. If you're unsure about a sentence, that your sentence is not 100% correct, that's definitely not correct. So make sure you don't write any sentence unless you are 100% sure whatever you're writing is correct. So I would definitely phrase my sentence in another way which I am more confident about, rather than writing a sentence which I'm unsure about that may have some errors. So make sure that you have sentences that are error-free. And then second thing is mix of simple and complex. You don't have to have a lot of sentences in your essay that are very long. When I say complex sentences, it's a sentence which has and, or the sentence that has a clause, like a dependent clause and an independent clause. Now, if you don't know about that, we might talk about these things in another video, but make sure you don't have too many ands, you don't have too many independent and dependent clauses in your sentence that makes a sentence difficult for the reader to read and understand. Remember, easy to read. So in a way, all these marking criteria are connected. So if you are making an error in one of the marking criteria, obviously that's gonna impact the other marking criteria as well. So these are some of the important things that you should be thinking about when you're talking about the 4 marking criteria. So this concludes part 2 of this video, which is what exactly these 4 marking criteria are and understanding marking criteria. So now we are moving to part 3 of the video, which is about common mistakes. So I've kind of already talked about what are some of the common mistakes in each of these marking criteria that students will make when they are appearing for IELTS exams. But let's make it simple, and I'm gonna repeat all those common mistakes in these 4 marking criteria that students will make. So let's go one by one. So first is task response. So common mistake with students' task response is that they do not answer the task completely. Like I said, they do not pay attention to the extreme words and keywords. I know these days institutions are paying a lot of attention on keywords, but they are not on extreme words. So there are some of the extreme words in the questions like only, all, some, many, must. These extreme words, I would say, change the whole meaning of what the question statement is. So you need to be very careful about these extreme words in your question. You need to be very mindful actually. So when you're producing your response, make sure that you pay full attention on what the examiner is expecting from you in your answer, considering these extreme words and the keywords. The next mistake that students will make, they would not develop and extend their ideas. So they would introduce an idea. For example, a candidate may say, learning a foreign language puts an extra burden on school-going children, and then maybe go on to the next idea. Now, the examiner knows that you have mentioned about an extra burden, but what that extra burden means. So you need to justify what that extra burden means. So you can simply say, children already have extra pressure of dealing with other complex subjects such as science, mathematics, which will put them under extra pressure if they have to deal with an additional subject at schools. So this is how you're gonna justify your point. So make sure whatever idea you're gonna introduce, you're gonna develop and extend it in your writing. So when I proofread my essay, I always look whether there's any idea or whether there's anything in my essay that I'm leaving undeveloped or that I'm leaving underdeveloped actually, that I need to pay more attention on for my examiner to understand what exactly I mean to say by that in my piece of writing. So make sure you extend and develop all the ideas. And the last thing, make sure you have a clear purpose, make sure you have a clear overview, and make sure you have a clear conclusion. I've already explained that in the previous part, but stressing that again, make sure that you have that. So for example, you're introducing something completely new in your conclusion that's not in your essay. That's going to confuse the examiner what exactly that means, why this specific candidate is introducing a new idea that doesn't make any sense. So make sure that you have everything in your essay that makes sense in the conclusion. Cohesion and coherence. So generally, test takers don't pay attention to topic sentences. They don't think that topic sentence is important. So for example, I am speaking about something that I haven't completely talked about that would confuse you. What is he talking about? He hasn't even introduced that thing to me. So it's for example, I haven't given you the clear meaning of what cohesion and coherence is, and then I have started talking about linking words and I've started talking about logical progression, and that will leave you confused and you will be thinking, what is he talking about? So that's similarly, you haven't introduced anything in your essay and then you're writing something completely new for the reader, and that will make them confused. And so make sure you have a clear topic sentence that introduces your reader what you're going to say in that specific body paragraph. Linking words, As I said, test takers sometimes use weird linking words which are not natural and which make no sense at specific sentence. So for example, I've seen some students using linking words like furthermore, moreover after every single sentence because they got told by some of their previous trainers that you should use these linking words. Of course you should, but you should use them when you're introducing a new idea. So for example, you have completely described one idea in your essay and you're moving from one idea to another, then you can use the linking words like also, furthermore in your essay. As I said, I'm gonna talk about these linking words in another video, but use the linking words naturally. The next one is so easy to read and logical progression. So the test takers may write an essay that's very difficult to read in a sense that words don't make sense and the sentences are quite long and it's not following a logical pattern in the essay. Of course, that's going to get you a very less score than what you have expected. So you might want to know that writing a complex sentence does not mean that they have to be long enough. They have to be complex in the sense that they have a dependent clause and an independent clause, or they have a simple connector like a and in between, and at the same time you need to be mindful that's easy to understand for the reader or the examiner to understand what you're trying to say. So make sure you have that in your essay. And finally, when I'm talking about grammatical range and accuracy, students would simply write sentences that are full of errors, they're long, they're complex. So make sure that you have the sentences that are very simple and that are error-free, most appropriate. And there are some sentences that are complex and error-free. Make sure the word that I'm stressing the most here is error-free. The more errors you have in your essay, the lesser band score will get you in that specific script. So make sure you have error-free sentences in your essay. Finally, lexical resource. Students uses weird lexical items, weird vocabulary that wouldn't even make any sense in that context, whatever they're trying to say. I'm not trying to criticize anyone, but I have seen many trainers saying use difficult words, use complex and impressive lexical items. That's not going to work. I'm sharing my personal experience, how I have achieved band 9 in all the 4 modules. So I would say I definitely wasn't looking at improving my vocabulary by learning a lot of words. But yes, I was focusing on learning some of the new interesting words that I can use in different contexts. Spellings. So make sure whatever you're writing, you know the spellings. So if you don't know the spellings, don't use that word. Use a different word because it's going to penalize you more than using a similar word than using an incorrect word. So make sure that you don't make many spelling errors if you're aiming at getting a 7. Verb endings. That's a very common mistake even with very good writers. Even I sometimes make verb endings, but when I proofread, I make sure that I don't have those verb ending, that is subject verb agreement errors in my essay. So overall, band 7 writing does not have many errors. It can have up to, for example, 6 to 7, or maybe sometimes if they're rare, like 7 to 8 errors. So make sure that your writing is error-free in terms of vocabulary, in terms of grammar. So that's very important. So I think that actually covered 4th part of my video as well, tips to improve your writing. But one final last tip that I wanted to give you guys about improving your writing is make sure that you know what your weaknesses are. So write an essay and obviously see what is lacking in your essay. get someone who is experienced, get someone who knows and understands how writing is assessed on IELTS, and obviously then work on some of your weaknesses and turn them into strengths, and keep writing, which is the key to get high band score. Maybe in some of the upcoming videos I will get some of my students who have successfully achieved the dream band score of 778 and who are actually my inspiration for making this video. So you all have always been great, and you have motivated me to make this YouTube channel and obviously work on these videos. So I'll come back with more videos. Until then, keep writing and keep learning English. Thank you very much for joining with me in this video. Thanks.